Hi, Emily here from Homemade Emily Jane, and in this video I'm going to talk all about AccuQuilt. Specifically, I'll be talking about AccuQuilt block on board dies, but before I dive into that, I want to give a brief introduction to what AccuQuilt is. AccuQuilt is a fabric cutting system using dies, and it is perfect for quilting and for cutting fabric, either for patchwork or applique. You can also cut out other types of materials with your AccuQuilt machine as well, such as denim or fleece or even batting too. So I use my AccuQuilt primarily for patchwork and piecing as I am making quilts. If you want to learn how to use an AccuQuilt machine, check out this video linked right here. Or if you want just like a real overview understanding of what AccuQuilt is and if AccuQuilt is right for you, check out the description below for a link to a blog post article on my website called Everything You Need to Know About AccuQuilt. In that article, it'll outline the different types of AccuQuilt machines as well as the different types of dies. And that brings me to this video where I will be diving in to everything you need to know about AccuQuilt BOBs. Bob is block on board, and it is a specific type of die for AccuQuilt machines. In this video, I'll be talking about what BOBs are, how to use them, which ones are my favorites, and also where to go to get patterns to use for your Bob dies as well. I create tons of videos here on YouTube, and I actually have a playlist, an AccuQuilt playlist, which you can check out, and as I add more tutorials there, you'll be finding more and more tutorials for specific block on board dies as I make more and more projects. So be sure to check it out and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well if you want to see more AccuQuilt tutorials. All right, let's get started with what is a bob. Bob stands for block on board, or BOB, and we use this particular type of die if you want one die that can cut out every single shape for one block. So it's really neat. It means that you don't have to buy a ton of dies to get started with AccuQuilt, and you can actually just buy one die and it'll have all of the shapes that you need. AccuQuilt BOBs come in all different designs and styles. You can find some that are much more geometric. One that I have that I'm really excited to use is this wonky heart bob die. This bob makes a 6-inch finished square, and you can actually see on the cover of each bob the specific pieces that it cuts out. So you can see it cuts out a ton of different shapes, and it's really neat to have one die that cuts out all of the shapes that you need. Another example of a bob is this pickle dish die that I'm really excited to use as well. As you can tell, it has a lot of very intricate pieces, some smaller triangles, and having a bob to cut out all those pieces makes it super helpful. I'll show you the close-up on this one as well. You can see that the shapes are lettered, and then they're also grouped together by what kind of fabric, what color fabric you'd be using to cut out each group of pieces to reduce fabric waste as much as possible. Every single bob comes with a pattern written on the back of the bob on the packaging, but what I also really love is that AccuQuilt allows you to get free downloads of their patterns on their website. So make sure that you check their website for the patterns as well. Maybe if you want to keep them digital and don't necessarily want to keep the packaging, you can always refer back to the AccuQuilt website for patterns to use all of your bobs. And sometimes they use different color combinations, and it's a lot of fun. So this dives into how to use the bob to cut out your pieces. There are two main, areas of thought with it that I'll discuss. One would be to follow the patterns that AccuQuilt provides and cut out exactly the number of pieces in the colors that you want. That one will require more planning, subcutting, and really getting accurate with how many pieces you cut out. But the way my mom likes to do it, and I don't think it's such a bad idea, she kind of just wings it and starts cutting out the shapes, and she'll end up with a few extra pieces than needed, but it takes out the planning part, and you can really just let your creativity flow and have fun with it. So I hope you'll try out both of those main methods and find what works best for you. I can say I've done it both ways, and they both work out really great in the end. So if you love scrappy projects, cut out lots of pieces and just see where the creativity takes you. One main thing about a bob versus a different shape or a different type of die with AccuQuilt is that the bob will include the exact amount of each shape to cut out, especially when you're referencing the pattern itself. So for most bobs, if you lay out your fabric correctly, you actually only have to run the die through the machine one time to get all of the pieces that you need for the block. I'll definitely show this step a lot more in the individual tutorials that I plan on doing, showing you how to use different bobs. But be sure to check out the AccuQuilt YouTube channel as well for lots more tutorials on that. Next, I want to talk about the different types of block on board dies that AccuQuilt offers. There are tons listed on their website and they are always coming out with new ones. So I'm going to highlight just a few of my favorites. I will go ahead and put links to these favorites in the description below. Be sure to check those out. They will be affiliate links, which means that I earn a small commission if you purchase through my link. So thanks in advance for your support. We'll start off by talking about the super easy piecing bobs. So if you are new to quilting or if you just want a really easy piecing project, be sure to check out the spool bob or maybe even the snowball bob. These are both some simple shapes that are going to be super fun and easy for you to make. AccuQuilt also offers a ton of bobs using stars. So within quilting, stars are very popular quilt blocks, and I actually didn't know how many different types of star blocks there were until pretty recently when I started doing my research. So if you want to make a star quilt using an AccuQuilt bob, check out the blazing star, the rising star, or maybe even the prairie star bobs. One particular shape that I really like to use AccuQuilt for is anything with curved piecing. And of course, these block on board dies are perfect for that. So if you've ever wanted to make a pickle dish, a double wedding ring quilt, or even a drunkard's path, or any other curved piecing, make sure to check out the AccuQuilt block on board dies because they will make it so much easier. I also have a tutorial for how to sew curved pieces, 2 different methods, so that you can try them out and pick your favorite. So be sure to check that out right here. And I'd like to cover one more category for the different types of bobs would be a traditional block bob. So I really love these because it makes the traditional block so much easier if you're using AccuQuilt. So be sure to check out some of the traditional bobs. These might be log cabin or even pineapple blocks. A question I get often is when to use a bob versus a cube with AccuQuilt. So if you've been around my channel at all, you know that I love using my mix and match cubes and their companion sets. Both the angled set and the corner set are both really fantastic. But sometimes it makes more sense to use a bob instead. So I really like having a mix in my collection, really figuring out what works for a specific project at hand. I love how the bobs can be so much more intricate and a lot more small pieces or a large variety of different shapes in one block. But I also really love how the cubes can be mixed and matched into all different kinds of shapes, especially for straight piecing. I will say to be sure to watch out. There are a couple AccuQuilt bobs that you could make using a cube. So if you already have a cube, it might not make sense to also buy the bob. So just be on the lookout for that. One that comes to mind is the Churn Dash, and then I believe also maybe the Ohio Star. So be sure to be on the lookout for bobs that you could already make that specific block using an AccuQuilt cube if you already have one. If you are deciding between a bob that has the shapes that you could use a cube for, I personally would recommend the cube just because it has so much more versatility. So now, which AccuQuilt block on board dies are the best? I would love to hear your opinion in the comments below, so be sure to drop a comment and let me know if you have a block on board die that you use and love. Be sure to tell me. I personally really love the double wedding ring block on board. I made my very first double wedding ring quilt back when I was in college. It was actually one of my first quilts, definitely not my very first, but first 5. And I cut out the wedding ring pieces using templates that I made with cardboard. So going from that experience to using an AccuQuilt bob to cut out a double wedding ring quilt was just worlds better and really makes me love quilting so much more. So the double wedding ring die is one of my favorites. And then I also have recently really started to like the Prairie Star die, and I do have a tutorial coming up for that one soon. So be sure to stay tuned, check out my channel for more quilting tips, tricks, and inspiration. If you want a tutorial for a specific bob die, be sure to drop that in the comments and let me know, and I will do my best to make that happen for you. Happy sewing!